Yeah, so right now I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm studying at Arizona State University, but I've accepted a full-time offer, so I'll be heading out to Houston within the next year.
Oh, really? That's awesome. Will that be before you finish your master's, or are you going to be doing it part-time at the same time while you
That's a good
work?
question. It's a good. So right now I'm in my first year, so I'm doing half now, and I want to do half while I'm working. So
Yeah,
later, once I get settled in, I'll be kind of feeling it out.
right, right. That's awesome. I think that's the way to go. Personally, um, we'll talk about more of our master's experience, but something that I wanted to do when I graduated college with my bachelor's, I really wanted to do a master's, but then after getting on the field and kind of realizing the opportunities that I had with the bachelor's only as a mechanical engineer, and also noticing that the salary difference really wasn't going to be that much. I was like, well, maybe I really
Hmm.
don't need a master's, you know? But we'll get back to this conversation about the master's. But the first thing I want to ask you is, how did you choose software engineering? Because I think that it's important for a lot of people that may be considering software engineering, because it's very cool nowadays, right? It's like very trendy, and oh, I can work from anywhere, and software, and it's like it's a skill that is never going to get old per se because of computers. So how did you make that decision to go for software engineering?
I was actually very lucky because once I chose it, it was somewhat of a leap of faith because I had no idea what it truly was. And I feel like you never really know. But every year, like in the university, I started loving it more and more. But I always loved computers. I
Yeah.
just didn't know what type. Should I be hardware, software? I just really couldn't wrap my head around how software worked because like I can open up a computer and see all the physical stuff,
Right.
but software is it's just a whole new world. I took a coding class in high school, and then I thought, wow, if I can get paid for this and there's a lot of opportunity, why not? So it took a little bit of leap, but one of the best decisions I've made.
Oh, interesting. That's awesome. Like for example, I can. It's good that it worked out for you. That ended up working out because I think like for my experience, for instance, my first major ever was computer science, and it's something that I thought I liked, but I picked it because it just sounded cool. So that was obviously a mistake, and I learned the lesson of not picking something because it sounds cool, but because you actually enjoy it, you know.
Hmm.
But anyway, so I ended up changing my major after the second semester because I realized, yeah, coding is definitely not for me. But I, but I realized that after actually trying it, you know. So I think that
Hmm.
it's good that it ended up working out for you. So what would you say when you were a student? Uh, what's your hardest year or the hardest class that you can remember that still gives you nightmares for a software engineer?
That's a good one. The Probably the hardest class I've taken is theoretical computer science. That
Yeah.
one was easily the biggest blow. It was so much logic, reasoning, proofs all over the place. And to this day, I think if I retook that class right now, I'd probably still struggle. That one, it is a nightmare.
Oh, really? Is it just as hard as you know when you first take calculus, it kind of like kicks you in the butt a little bit. Is it just as hard, or you think it's a lot more difficult? It's just requiring more hours, a lot of projects.
I think it's maybe not the intensity that's more difficult, but I think it is more difficult because there's not as many resources out there as math. So if you
Mm.
go and look up calculus, you'll find Khan Academy, you'll find a ton of YouTube stuff, but in terms of theoretical computer science, it's not as easy to not easy, but it's not something a lot of people pick up. It's typically you go through it in university. So a lot of less resources out there. So you really got to utilize the tutors, the professors, and your nearby students.
Oh, okay. That's a really good way to overcome it, and using your tutors, professors, and the
Hmm.
people that you get along with or that you pair up with. I think that's really good. So you graduated.
Hmm.
When did you graduate as a computer
Yes.
software engineer?
So it'll be this semester. Pretty much it's like half and half, just writing it off pretty much. I'm taking like two undergrad classes
Yeah.
out of the way, and then I'll be doing, my master's mostly.
Oh, okay, okay. How has the did the pandemic affect your, because I mean it is software engineering after all, which you can kind of do from home basically. I mean at least that's the idea, right? Uh, did that affect you at all this year when it comes to your schoolwork?
I think it's more of like keeping yourself accountable. That's probably the hardest part
Yeah.
because you nobody's keeping you track of if you're going to lecture. It's kind of like do you have that discipline to go in every single day, not say, oh, it's recorded, I can just watch this next week, and then it piles up more and more. So I wouldn't say it's more difficult. I think it's more difficult to just have that mentality, to have that discipline to keep going to class and do your work on time.
Yeah, having that discipline and that self accountability, that's the tough part, right?
Hmm.
Like, man, I remember so when I was in college, well, that was 10 years ago. And so online classes they weren't really like trendy. They were kind of like starting to become somewhat regular back then. And so I took a couple of online classes. I remember I took an ocean engineering class, and then I also took the fundamentals of engineering uh, preparation class. They had I don't know if you're familiar with the FE exam, the engineering in training is also called. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I prepared for that class and it was all online. And I can tell you it was very, very difficult to be accountable to the test. I would take him last minute. I would prepare for the test, but I would do the homework that is due, man, like within hours from it being due because I just didn't have that um, that that awareness per se of time because you think that, oh, it's online, I can get to it anytime, and it can be very deceiving, especially if the homework is hard and you don't have much time, so you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So what do you project your let me ask you this, do you have any internships in the past? I know you graduated this year, so how did you get your first internship and where was it?
I got my first internship at a career fair at my university. I had gotten so much, I guess, mentoring from people in an organization called the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers.
Mhm.
They guided me, helped me so much. Just prep my resume, my elevator pitch, mock interviews, all this stuff. So I went in really prepared. My junior year, I had failed so much my freshman and sophomore
Yeah.
from just bringing one sheet of resumes to the career fair. Even a recruiter made fun of me at the point. But no, yeah, it was just a lot of prepping, a lot of kind of preparing for that role, applying beforehand, and understanding what I wanted to do with my career,
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
going to that and selling it.
Oh, okay, awesome. So how much of an impact do you think SHIP, because that's how you say it, right? Like Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So SHIP, how much of an impact do you think it has made in your life? Because I wish I would have been more aware of such societies, when I was in college. And I think that for any young engineers out there that are considering college or going through college right now, what would you say to them to join any society that's going to help them develop and grow? Like, what would you tell them?
Oh, absolutely. Ship played a huge role for me. I didn't really have any engineers in my family. I had one, my uncle, but he was a civil engineer, he lived far away in California,
Yeah.
but I didn't really have that guidance. So being in ship, I got to meet some amazing people, people that were walking the walk, in engineering that taught me a lot of stuff. So I'd probably say it was 90% of what they were teaching, and I just had to apply what they were teaching me. And that's ultimately how I got the internship. But yeah, if you're a student, definitely join an organization that you fit in with, that you like. Doesn't have to be SHIP, but anyone that you find the people to be inspirational or motivational, and they know what they're talking about, it's going to help you grow your network. Yeah, best decision.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I was reading a comment a couple of weeks ago from someone. I was watching an engineering video, and then a person said that sometimes when you're part of these organizations, and is it he provided an example on how these organizations sometimes they have their own job fairs and career fairs. Like, is
Hmm.
that like? Can you elaborate on that? Have you ever experienced one of those in your career so far?
For the university or
Yeah, like
the
for example,
organization?
does SHIP hold its own career fairs or job fairs per se, like either internally in the university, but only for SHIP people, or somewhere else externally? Do you have to travel to them? Like, do you have an
Yeah,
insight?
yeah. Okay, yeah, absolutely. For ship, yeah, they have a few. So the big one is always in November around that time. It's the national convention. So it'll vary by cities. Right now, because of the pandemic, it was virtual, but hopefully in the future they will go back to being in person. So the last one that was in person was actually in Phoenix, Arizona. It was been in Kansas City. It's been in Seattle before a few years back. So they try to alternate, and we'll have our 50th anniversary coming up in a few years, and hopefully it'll be in California because that's where Ship was founded. But they have like hundreds of companies and recruiters that come down there, thousands of recruiters. So
Oh, really? Wow, it's huge.
yeah, it's humongous. I think the attendance this year was 11,000 people, so definitely something to take advantage of.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That's awesome. Yeah, so that's definitely a good resource. And I'm sure there are other similar organizations that hold their own career fairs as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. There's Nesby, there's Swee, there's Grace Hopper. There's a ton. I would just say,
Just
pick one that you
be
vibe
part of
with.
one of them, go to it, and then just take advantage, grow. So how did you learn ship? I'm sorry, how do you join it?
Oh yeah. How did I join, or how do you join in general?
So, okay, so let's go about that. So how do you join? How do you find it? Were you a freshman or
hmm
sophomore?
Yeah, I was my first semester at university. It was back in 2016,
Yeah.
and it was an engineering classroom, and I had a Mexico jersey at the time. So one person in there was from Ship, and he's like, okay, he's Mexican, he's an engineer. Let's get him. So he walked up to me. He said, hey, like let's go play soccer. There's a ton of Hispanics in this club. And then I learned what it was. I learned they had a ton of meetings, and then it was a big national organization. So kind of baby steps to there. But if you join, a lot of universities have it. There's over 200 plus chapters in the United States.
Yeah.
So a lot of colleges, if you don't have them, you can actually start one, and you just need to just look ship.org. You'll find a lot of resources there.
Right, right. That's awesome. No, I think it's definitely good insight for many people. Like, for example, if I would go through college and then I could go to an organization that's going to help me grow professionally and help me network. That's definitely something that I would love to know about. So
Mhm.
in this semester, since you're graduating, let me ask you this: since you got an offer, can you walk me through how you got this offer? And the one thing that I also want to ask you here is, you know, a lot of times we hear, oh, your GPA is not important. So I hear many other engineers say that. Uh, but I think that for your first job, and if you're gonna go to grad school, it's definitely important, because it kind of helps you stand out from the crowd, from everybody else per se.
Mhm.
Uh, so could you walk us through how you got this position, how you got this offer, and what would your GPA be? What are you projected to be upon graduation?
Good question. So for the full time that I got, that one was pure networking. So my first internship, there was things that I loved, for some things that I didn't love. So I wanted a change of pace. And I had a friend that got an offer with a company called Accenture, a consulting tech
Yeah,
company.
yeah.
And
Big
he
company. Yeah.
big company, he spoke the world of it, and I said, ooh, I'm interested. And then he connected me with a recruiter, and I talked to this recruiter for like a full year, emailing back and forth, and just really preparing for the time that I did get to interview with them.
Yeah.
uh, she told me to read a book, consulting book. It's called Case in Point. Blasted through there. I practiced case studies, all this stuff for the interview. So when I gave it, I was actually at the Ship National Convention when I got the offer. So I interviewed there. Um, Very, very interesting interview, different from the tech ones.
Yeah.
But no, that's how I got it. And sorry, I'm blanking on the second question you
So
asked.
the second one was, well, what do you project your final GPA to be?
That's okay. For bachelor's, it's probably a 3.3.
Hmm.
That's what it's probably going to be like.
Yeah.
And for master's, it's probably going to be higher. I don't know. I just started it, so it's tough to
Right, right,
predict that
right.
one.
Yeah, I was just trying to get an idea just to help the listeners understand how important your GPA is, because I think that uh, again, when you graduate from with your bachelor's, because uh, well, the company that you're working for may also have requirements for minimum GPA, like certain requirements that you need to meet. Sometimes they're required to be a US citizen or your GPA. What I found in my career is that if a company really wants you, if they really want you to work for them, they may make exceptions to some rules. Like for instance, if your GPA is a 3.2 and they require a 3.3, then maybe they just kind of bypass that rule because they know they really like you, or maybe they network with you and they know you, so they just kind of like, all right, just do it, just let them go type thing. But there are some things also that they may not be able to bypass, such as like maybe if you're not a citizen and then you're gonna be doing government work per se, then they're required to be a citizen, so you can't really bypass that, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was just trying to like help people understand like how important your GPA is, and also networking. You mentioned networking, and you met the current hiring manager through your internship, right?
No, yeah, we're great friends now.
Oh, really?
But
Well, that
yeah,
also helps.
it helps. I actually recommend that. People always want to have like this very strict professional relationship, but
Yeah.
I always like to make it personal. Like I know, what school their kids are going to, all this stuff. Building relationships is not about knowing people, but actually having a good relationship with them. I think
Yeah,
that's the key.
exactly. Exactly. Yes, I agree with that. And also, I was talking to an electrical engineer a couple of months ago before like the whole pandemic, and we were walking down the street. We start talking about all the senior executive officials in our organization, and we just kind of start talking about them. And then he was saying that, yeah, like I know here a couple of people, but then he was like, but what I realized is not really so much who you know, it's really where it really comes down to who knows you, because you may know a lot of people, but like if they don't know you, if you don't have something personable with them, if you don't have anything in common, then it doesn't really matter, you know. Uh, I, so I think definitely, like you say, like building relationships and helping, um, and just building that connection beyond just being professional. But I think you also have to be careful though. Like with who you do it with, like who you're interacting with, because some people just want to keep it professional all the time, and if you overbear the boundaries, then they're kind of like, wait, what? Like what is this person doing?
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta be, a little emotionally intelligent there. Have some
Yeah,
EQ.
exactly. Yeah, I like that phrase. I like that phrase. Okay, so now is it safe to say you'll be working for Accenture?
Yes, yes. Well, hopefully they don't rescind an offer or anything, but from
Right,
my
right.
end, I'd love to work there. Yes.
So where will you be working? Would that be in Arizona or?
It'll be in Houston. If it's virtual, I don't know if they have a strict,
Yeah, yeah,
regulations that I have to be there, but
yeah.
we'll see. The plan is
Oh,
Houston.
oh, okay, that's good. I think there's a lot of tech jobs being I don't want to maybe hosted or headquartered in Houston, right? I
Uh-huh.
think there's like a lot of like growth happening. Would you say that, or maybe just like a city and it's
You
just
know, I haven't lived there, so it's tough for me to speak on it, but I will say it has a good amount of tech. You wouldn't have a big issue finding a job if you're in tech there. It's a humongous city, a lot of stuff there.
yeah? Because I have a friend that moved there from New York, also for a tech job, and then I'm thinking, maybe a lot of people like next Silicon Valley.
Hmm.
So, so what's your goals with? Do you have any goals with Accenture? I know that obviously you're finishing your masters and you kind of like looking ahead. Do you foresee going up the ladder, or do you want to do your PE? Well, you might not really not need a PE since you're a software guy, but like, what do you foresee in the next couple of years after you finish your masters?
I'd like to move into more machine learning, artificial intelligent work. I,
Wow.
I love that stuff. And if you can mix that with healthcare, I think it's the perfect combination. I'll be the happiest engineer, in that sector. Mixing those two that would be my passion and dream.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Like, what are you envisioning? What kind of pieces of equipment or what kind of artificial intelligence are you thinking to? What's your
Hmm.
wildest dream per se when it comes to AI?
I think probably even a bigger subset of machine learning, which would be deep learning. So it utilizes a lot of neural networks, and that's kind of a mapping of kind of the human brain, how it thinks. So it's kind of mimicking how our brain reasons and gets to conclusions. So if you could apply that to medicine, help a hospital, identify certain illnesses, some biomarkers, I think that would be incredible. So right now for my senior project, we're working with a company here that kind of does something similar. They do synthetic lethality, so that's cell
Wait,
gene
what?
death.
What is that?
So it's essentially two genes, like individually they're fine, but when they're paired, they could lead to synthetic lethality. So the genes die, the cells die, and that's something that's you want to prevent, cause a lot of few illnesses, and we're doing machine learning to find biomarkers through there to be able to, I guess, eliminate those.
That's some crazy stuff. Is that cutting edge? Is that groundbreaking? Is that like the first time you guys something being done, or something that's been being developed for the last couple of years?
For this company specifically, it'll be new. I have no idea if some amazing companies are doing something under the hood that we're not seeing, but
Yeah, yeah.
for this company, it is new.
Oh, interesting. Wow, that sounds really cool. And also like um that's incredible experience, honestly, and it definitely leads you down the path that you want to go to. So it seems like you already finding the Lego pieces that are taking you to where you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of, I guess, students don't do. They don't search for a passion because a passion is tough to find when you're just sticking to your academics, because school's going to be very broad. It's
Right, right.
not their job to teach you what your passion is. So you have to be actively looking out for the latest technology, science breakthroughs that are going to make something tick inside you, like, ooh, that's what I really want to do.
Yeah. And how do you arrive in this project? Is it something that you were researching, or do you find it through ship, or somebody told you about it? Because I think that is like one of the things, when in my experience, when you have many options and then you don't know where to go. And if you don't know what you want exactly, then it's really hard to just go down one path specifically, because
Hmm.
you're thinking, man, I have all these different options. And then, when we're growing up, we're told, oh, you can do anything that you want. But if you don't know what you want, then it can be very, very overwhelming and frustrating. So how do you find this research project, I mean, for your senior design?
For a lot of universities are different, but ASU, they have this capstone where seniors are required to do this long project for a full year,
Right, right.
and you can actually present work or you select ones, and then it's sort of like a new job. You would actually apply to these and say, hey, I want to do this work for this reason, and here's my resume to back up that I'm skilled enough to be
Yeah.
working in this role.
Oh,
But
interesting. You have to submit a resume to be accepted to a senior design. Oh, interesting.
mhm.
I know that.
So no, it's pretty cool. But if you're trying to do research, I've been able to do research outside of the senior design. I actually did it when I was a sophomore, and it was
Yeah.
a similar thing where I presented a project to a professor, and he really liked it, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Let's do it." So I got to do research with him. Um,
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
just
And I'm sure you put that on your resume as well, and that counts as experience.
yeah, absolutely. And working with like PhD students was intimidating. Your second
Yeah.
year in university, but a big learning experience.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, a couple of months ago, I made a video on how, like some people may be a little desperate for internships. They're trying to get some experience. They can't get anything going. Who knows? Maybe their GPA is too low, or maybe they don't know anybody, and so it can be very, very difficult sometimes to find an opportunity. And so one of the things that I suggested was doing a research project, like something that you can get through school, you know,
Hmm.
because that happened to me. I joined a couple of PhD students, and they were doing design work. They were working on a gas turbine, a jet engine, and so I was like, well, this counts of experience to me. It's like hands-on. I'm working in a team, and I'm gonna put it on my resume as experience. So I feel like I call it a mini internship, because you're getting a lot of experience with that. Um,
Hmm.
so did you have any other offers, or did you apply to any other companies? Do you get rejected a lot? how did you overcome those rejections if you apply to other companies?
Ooh, that's a good one. I've been applying to stuff since I was a freshman. So for 2 years straight, it was straight rejections.
Yeah,
But I mean, what's the alternative? Not do anything? I mean, you're
yeah,
going to end up with the same thing anyways.
yeah,
But when junior year came around and I was, at a level where companies were like, okay, he might know enough to work here.
yeah,
There were a few offers. Um, but I picked the one that just was a higher paying one that had some great tech. They were hiring a ton of people, so I was like, "Ooh, let's jump on the wagon. Let's see how it goes." And then later on, I had an idea. Like I said, I really want to do Accenture,
yeah.
so I wasn't really applying to many other things. I had some in mind to say, what if I don't get this? I had some backups, but the second I heard that offer, I accepted and said that, this is where I want to be.
Right, right. No, that makes sense. Man, like I remember when it came to my time to apply, I got rejected so many times. Uh, Sometimes you get ghosted too. You never hear back, like man. So you just gotta, like you say, you just gotta keep applying and applying. And
Hmm.
then for my first internship ever, I got a random email from another, like one of those, maybe I think he was kind of like an engineering director.
Hmm.
So he's like, "Hey, I saw your resume. Are you interested in working for us?" I was like, "Wait, what?" I was like very surprised. I was just like checking my email, and suddenly you get this inquiry. Hey, you want to work for us? I thought it was a joke at first, and then I called them, and everything ended up working out. But it was good. But hey, so I wanted to pick your brain a little bit more on the passion thing. How do you find this passion that you talked about? Because I think that's a very common question that as young people, I consider myself young. I'm still 31. Um,
That's young. Yes, absolutely.
yeah. Uh, and not too long ago, I was going through the same phase when I was like 23, 24, especially when you graduate college, when you have your full-time job, and you have a little bit more time in your hands other than doing homework or just being focused on projects all the time. So you have a little bit more time where you start thinking about, okay, now I have a job, I'm doing what I like,
Hmm.
but sometimes you just feel like you want to do a little bit more, especially if you don't have any kids or any family that depends on you. You're on your own. You're working 40 hours a week or 50, 60 hours. And then you start thinking, okay, what else can I do with the rest of my time? And you start being a little more introspective. Like what kind of interest do I have? You start exploring, you start traveling, you start doing all these things.
Hmm.
So when it comes to your situation and your passion, well, it seems like you already found it, which is related to artificial intelligence and developing human stuff, like real all this great stuff. Um, so how did you find it? Did you stumble upon it, or did you try different things and you said, "Wow, this is really what I like"? How did you get there?
I think it was something that built on itself, and I first discovered it when I was a sophomore, and then later ignored it
Mm,
because I kind of followed what people told me I should be doing. And it's also a different thing, but uh, I presented this health project because this girl I was dating at the time had tendonitis in her knees, and I said, "Well, I'm not a doctor. I'm a second year computer science student." So I went up to this professor who specialized in these healthcare projects,
yeah,
where he used computer science and coding to deliver some awesome machines, and they're called Cubic. And like he had contraptions like you could wear a belt, and this belt was for blind people, and based on like a camera using computer vision, it could tell their expressions like, oh, he's smiling, he's happy. So it would give a sensor that would spell out kind of saying, hey, this person's happy. So this person that couldn't see now had an idea saying, okay, this person I'm talking to is clearly happy. And it had several emotions it could go through. So now you can give somebody whose one sense is gone and you're giving it to them. He did some amazing stuff with stroke patients, Parkinson's. So I went up to this with him with this project, and he loved it. And he said, okay, you're the only student that's come up to me with a specific project in mind. Everybody just comes up to me saying,
what can I
hey,
work on?
yeah, what could I work on? I need something on my resume. But you had this passion. And seeing everything in his room, I said, wow, this is this is insane. He's actually changing lives with coding. And here I was working in classes making stupid video games, right? I was like, no, I want to do something important with this stuff. So I got to do research with him. And later I took the first internship because it was high paying and it was finance. But being there, I didn't feel very fulfilled at all. And it made me realize, okay, I want to go back to kind of health. And then I found out about AI and bridging those two. But it's important to note, passion is you have to build it. It's not like something deep rooted within you. So if you're not exploring, you're not, seeing the latest news articles or watching documentaries, you're never going to find it, soul searching.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really interesting experience, man. The way that I like to think about passion is, number one, definitely about experimenting and jumping in, and actually start doing. Because you can read all you want, but then if you actually start doing it and you don't like it, well, obviously that's not your passion. But then the other thing is, I think it's also about exploring your curiosity, like what your interests are. And then, oh, this seems like something that I might enjoy. And so you just go down and do it, but yeah, so definitely exploring, experimenting, and exploring your curiosity for sure. So that's something that you really want to do in the long term then. So now obviously you're going to be doing that with Accenture. Are you planning in the future to, let's say, open your own company and your own research organization, or maybe open a nonprofit with all the knowledge that you have? I know that it's still probably very early in your career, and you're still thinking of, you're probably thinking, man, I'm just trying to work on this first job. It's a little too far ahead. But I think that it's never too early. If you have some people just really develop that long-term vision of what they really want to do exactly, and they just start doing it. So it seems like you kind of have an idea. I don't know, I may be wrong though. What do you think?
No, in terms of career, right now, I'd like to get a lot of experience in terms of AI, because right now I'm only academic in terms of AI. I haven't worked with a company aside from this project, like for actual stuff that are deliverables inside of a company. So I do want to learn a little bit more about AI. But I would like to start a nonprofit. And it's not too much in the near future, but I'd still like to keep my career. So it'll be sort of this part-time thing. And I already have an idea. It would be to create scholarships for students looking to pursue these STEM degrees. But there would be something very innovative with it. So it wouldn't just be, donate, but here you could donate and see everything. So you would see what student you're donating to, what school they're attending, their major, and they'd be put through this little mini conference, right? So you'd get to see them, how they interact. We'd interview the students, record it, upload it so donors can see and, where their money is going to. They'd be going into engineering challenges and just workshops to train them up. And everything's recorded. Donors will be able to see everything. And then at the end, vote on which students they like the most and which students deserve the highest scholarships. So hopefully that made sense.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
But yeah, sort of have an interactive experience.
That's a new concept, isn't it? Because usually you just donate the money, and then I guess the financial department just handles it, who asks for money, and it's usually like first come, first serve. If you meet all the requirements they have for their scholarship, and then before you know it, they run out of money. It's like, man.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll do a test run this year. We already have a school. We're planning the event, so we'll see how it goes, and hopefully create a nonprofit from it in future years.
Gotcha. Nice. So now let's switch gears a little bit, and let's talk a little bit more about your personal experience and your story, because you mentioned, so are you or your family from Mexico?
My entire family is from Mexico. I lived there till I was about 3 or 4. So I can't say I grew up there. I was born in San Diego. A few months later, we went back to Tijuana, Mexico. My entire family is from Sinaloa and Mexico City. So definitely some big roots there. But my immediate family grew up here, like my siblings and here in Phoenix.
Gotcha. Did anybody else in your family go to college, like your parents, or are you first generation students? Like,
My father studied, I believe, something related to accountancy, or yeah, some a business major in Mexico.
Okay.
But I have four siblings, and we all attend a university, and I'm the almost the last one to graduate. So
Oh,
once
really?
I'm out, we'll all be, um, I guess, I don't know how we say it, licensed, certified.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. That's good. Proud parents, I'm sure.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, for when it comes to like my family, so my mom, I'm not sure if she even finished high school, honestly. I think she did. Yeah, I think for sure she did. But then my dad, he's a geological engineer, so he worked for Shell like back in the 70s. So my whole family is originally from Peru. I'm from Peru. I
Mhm.
came to the United States when I was 16. It's kind of funny because I never really wanted to go to college. You know,
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to be an engineer when I was younger, but then, as you start growing and you go into your teenage years, and then you start being influenced a lot by like, and you start doubting the decisions that you thought you wanted to make.
Hmm.
And so when I was in Peru, I was like, oh, I'm not going to school. Like, fuck that. Like, nah, I don't want.
Uh-huh.
And then I came here, and then my siblings were going to university, um, and that definitely had a huge influence on me,
Hmm.
on also wanting to go to university. And also, because I was brand new here, and back then, community college, which is the first thing I did, helped me kind of get out there and make some friends and kind of like start a new life. So it was also like an excuse or escape to start
Hmm.
adapting to the U.S. And uh, but yeah, so
Wait, how old were you when you came to the US?
I was 16 years old.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. So that
yeah.
was a probably a bit of a culture shock, I'm
Oh
assuming.
yeah, for sure. It was. It got to a point where I didn't want to come to the U.S. And then when I came here, I was like, man, I am so homesick because home back then was Peru. And
Uh-huh.
then I was thinking, I'm gonna go to college since they want me to go to college. And then after I graduate, I'm gonna go back to Peru. Like I don't want to stay here, blah blah. But then I actually started making friends, started going out, and I was like, I'm not going back to Peru. Like I'm
You know, that's funny. I had my plane ticket. I was gonna go to Peru, and not a month before the pandemic hit, and they closed the borders. My flight was canceled, and I was like, no, my last chance to travel.
wow, that's crazy. Where in Peru were you gonna go?
I was gonna go to Lima and then to Cusco. So those two
Yeah, yeah.
cities, and then back.
Yeah, that's probably the two major ones because Cusco, you obviously have Machu Picchu, and then Lima's the capital. Man,
Hmm.
that's awesome. Like, I mean, well, I hope you get to go at some point in the next couple of, well, we'll see, like months or a couple of years.
Well,
But
hopefully, we'll see.
yeah, but the funny thing is, or the crazy thing per se, so my parents were in Peru when the pandemic started hitting, and then
Hmm.
10 hours before the Peruvian airports shut down, my parents were able to get out of Peru coming back because they were there for a month. And
Yeah.
so, had they not left
Wow.
Peru at 6 a.m., because I think that's when they left, at 6 p.m., everything was shut down. Like, nobody could get out. And there were so many tourists that were stranded. And I can't
Uh-huh.
imagine, man, because my parents would have been there probably until a couple of months ago.
That's lucky. Wow.
Yeah, 10 hours there. It's like, sheesh. Do you have any other travel plans in the future? Like, I know that's like a little rough to plan right now, but do you have any plans to visit other countries that are going to help you develop your skills? Have you thought about that?
Wow. I have not. In terms of my career, I have
Yeah,
not.
like for example, there may be other countries like I don't know if Europe or who knows, maybe like Asia, like Japan. They may have other fields that are a little bit more advanced than here. Who knows? I'm just trying to think what other tools you could use in the future, or if you ever consider them, to expand your knowledge.
Absolutely. That's a good one. I mean, I know in consulting, Accenture, you do travel quite a bit, so it's not uncommon that you have a project in Italy or France, so you're going to have
Yeah.
to be traveling and meeting different people. But in terms of me myself traveling for specifically like that. I haven't. Maybe for the nonprofit, I would love to expand it to other countries, to have other people, in these countries pursue STEM and have their shot at pursuing an education without that financial burden.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, because I think that I don't know if you follow Dr. Michio Kaku. Have you heard of him? He's a theoretical physicist.
Maybe
So
if I saw his face, but not his name's not ringing a bell.
yeah, he's a Japanese guy, like pretty short, white hair. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and he's a wealth of knowledge. He talks about this is back when I was like really into physics, and one of the majors
Mm-hmm.
that I considered before I picked was that computer science at then? I think after computer science, I was debating what other fields I would get into, 'cause I was a little chicken when it comes to mechanical engineering, and engineering just sounded, it was just very, uh, it was very scary to think about engineering. And I was thinking, oh man, like I don't want to get to my third year and then my brain is going to explode because I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. So it was definitely lack of confidence in the beginning. But I was considering math and physics. And then I talked to my dad, and then my dad was like, "Well, what are you gonna do with like math and physics? It's like, are you gonna be a professor or like, what are you gonna do?" And so that kind of made me think about more about engineering itself. Well, yeah, I'm just gonna go for mechanical engineering and let's see what happens. Well, it ended up working out for sure. But anyway, so physics, Michio Kaku, he in one of his books, he talks about his book is called Physics of the Future, and he basically gives projections on what kind of developments and what kind of new things are going to be popping up in the next 30, 60, 100 years. And the way he actually started gathering all this information is that he said, there's a lot of things that are already being worked. However, the scientists and all the engineers that are working on these new things, they don't have the time to write a book, or they don't have the
Mm-hmm.
time to do all these conferences, and so there's many things that remain underground per se. And so he in his book he puts a lot of those new updates and like future things that people are working on. And then one of the things he starts talking about being able to obviously modify your DNA, genetic
Mm-hmm.
engineering, which is something that I think is already taking place. He also talks about being able to simulate neurons and all these like crazy things in your brain. Uh, but as far as I remember, one of the main challenges of simulating neurons and just kind of like simulating the brain per se is the amount of heat that is generated when you start using uh,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of electronics in your brain. When you're trying to simulate it, there's so much power, so many things that take place, so much
Yeah.
electricity happening
Mm-hmm.
that it overheats. And then the problem then becomes, okay, well then how you cool it, you know? So that's one of the main challenges he was talking about. I don't know if you can give us any insight from the AI perspective. Like,
Oh no! And once you said that he predicts kind of technology, I knew exactly who you were talking to. I
really?
just didn't know his name. Yeah, absolutely. But it is really interesting, and it sounds like you would love. Have you seen Unnatural Selection on Netflix?
No.
Okay, you need to watch that because it goes into gene
Really?
editing. It goes into that stuff. Literally the best thing I've seen on Netflix, and that is actually probably one of the things that drove me into my passion because it was just so different. Like, it goes over this no spoilers, but this kid who's blind and he wants to be an astronaut. For an astronaut, you need 20/20 vision. So they talk a little bit about gene editing in there. So that was incredible.
Yeah.
Um, I can't give you too much about like the AI of actually mapping the brain too much. I'd need a little bit more experience in deep learning for that.
Yeah, yeah. Man, that's natural selection. Have you ever thought about working for NASA? I know that a lot of engineers will, it's like sometimes many engineers' dreams. Oh man, I want to work for NASA, NASA, NASA. Did you ever consider that or no?
Yeah, it was in the back of my mind a few times where I saw them everywhere. They were all over ASU, and if you go to the ship convention, they're huge. NASA's humongous, but just I think I would much rather pursue health and AI than space exploration in my eyes. Like it is tremendous work and incredible, but just from my specific passions, I think it's more of, ooh, that would be cool, rather than I would give my life to this and I would be
Yeah.
cool.
Wow. Sounds like you're very, very committed to the health field and combining and bridging AI and developments to help people. So what ended up happening to your girlfriend who basically ended up inspiring you for what you're doing now?
Yeah, good question. I have no idea. We lost connection after, the breakup, but
That makes a lot of sense. But like, did the tendon get fixed and everything, or?
for the project, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, she ended up backing out of the project. She felt a little uncomfortable, but the
Ah.
professor was like, "Hey, I want you to work on different projects within here." So I didn't work on that project specifically, but I did get a chance to work with other ones.
Oh, okay, okay. That's awesome. Man, that's really good insight on how you were able to find your passion, how you ended up where you are now, and also like how all the lessons that you learned throughout your short career, because obviously like you're just beginning your career as an engineer,
Mhm.
um, is how the pieces are being put together in your journey, and how that's also helping you create a vision for yourself in the long run. So it seems like you have a lot of good things planned ahead, and um, definitely a path that you want to take and that you're developing. Um, do you have any pieces of advice for any potential software engineers? Like, let's say a young engineer is considering software, that they're not sure if they should pursue it. What are the requirements, or what would you say to someone that is considering software engineering? Is this something that it can be rewarding if you pair it with the right thing, that you can do more than video games? What would you say?
Yeah, and ooh, there's so much advice, and it would vary so much on the level of the person I'm talking to. But if you're, for example, you said if you're debating whether you should go into it, I
Yeah.
would say don't be intimidated by the people in the major nor the actual major. Like if it's something you like, go for it. If it's something you don't like and you're just doing it for the money, probably don't do it. Pick something in engineering that you would have a passion for, because you're going to be coding a lot.
Yeah.
If you hate that, you shouldn't go into it. But I remember being, yeah, exactly. I remember being so intimidated my first couple of years, because I was working full time. I was a server and working terrible hours at IHOP,
Mm.
and everybody around me, like, they were just so knowledgeable, or they at least appeared to be so knowledgeable and so ahead of me in every step of the way. But that fizzles out once you get your first internship, and a lot of people don't. So there's a big jump. Just literally keep working at it. Don't get discouraged by the intensity. Like, who
Yeah.
cares if you fail a class? Just retake it
Right,
and
right.
give it your all.
Yeah, for sure. That's great advice. Uh, and then a little bit earlier, you mentioned something about listening to too many people, or listening to the wrong people sometimes.
Hmm.
How did you filter out the sometimes listening to too many voices that tell you to do this, to do that? Because one of the things that I want to hear your side of things first. Like, how do you kind of filter out the naysayers or people that just give you their advice or their unsolicited opinion? How do you
Hmm.
go through all of that?
Honestly, I've gotten so much bad advice throughout my life, and even in career, in personal life, all this stuff, just terrible. So that's something nobody talks about: how to weed out bad advice. A lot of times, I think about how knowledgeable are they on the topic. Like,
Mm.
are they an expert in it, or are they talking about something they have no idea? And even I've gotten bad advice from professionals. For example, somebody told me that I should show up drunk to a career fair, and I said, no, that's a bad idea. And if you don't have an email of somebody and you really want their email, experiment. Like, put their first name dot last name at thecompany.com and just keep hitting it until you get the right email. And I was like, no, that's also terrible advice. But for me, I tried to shun out and just follow a mix of like my heart, my passion, and my brain. Like, am I
Right.
doing what I like, and does it make sense? Because
That's a good
there,
question. Does it make sense? Yeah, I think that
mhm.
common sense is not so common nowadays, right? Like
It's not.
you gotta learn to weed out that. Yeah, no, definitely. To elaborate also and expand on what you were just saying. From my experience, like one of the things that I shared on my channel before is that when I give my perspective and when people in general, when they give you their take, they're gonna be telling you what they think of their opinions based on what they went through. So if they went through terrible jobs or they had terrible experiences in engineering, or maybe they were underpaid and overworked, extremely overworked, or maybe they got fired or laid off, they're going to be a little more resentful and they're going to be frustrated with the industry. And so they're going to tell you that it sucks. They may tell you that it sucks. It's like, it's terrible. Like, don't do it. But if you, at the same time, talk to someone that has had a really good experience, like maybe they went through, they traveled, or like you found your passion in engineering, and so those people are going to have a 180-degree different perspective and different advice. So I definitely said in that video that you have to take what people say with a grain of salt and see where they're coming from.
Absolutely. No, that's perfect. Take it with a grain of salt. Like, don't use it to guide it and say, this is what I'm going to do. Just
Yeah.
keep it in the back of your head. They're saying it maybe for a reason, but you'll be able to weed it out if you
Right,
have the
right.
common sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, that's now that we're talking about this, also I think, and this is something that I went through, because sometimes we just want to be told what to do. Sometimes you just want to just give me the formula and I'll follow it, per se. Just tell me, like, I don't know which way to go. Just tell me which way I should go, and then I'll go. And I mean, I know that it's sometimes like it can be very overwhelming because you don't want to make the wrong decision, you know? You don't want to go down the path 10 years and you realize, oh man, I hate this. So I totally understand, and I've been there. But sometimes, like what I suggest people do is just do your research, kind of look at the people that are where you want to be and just get their take on it, you know. And if you're the first one, then go for it. See what happens. Give it a couple of years, and then, I mean, people are young, man. I mean, if you're in college, you're in your early 20s, mid 20s, and then you have a whole life ahead of you. And so if you don't like something, then you can always switch. It's not going to be the end of the world. I don't know. What do you say? What do you think?
Oof. Honestly, I think it's a lot of people always also get, fed up with you need to make the right decision always.
Mm,
And sometimes I say any decision, like it'll guide you. Like even if you go through a bad experience,
mm.
you might say, okay, I didn't like this. So
Yeah,
now I know what I don't like. And you're one step
exactly.
closer to
Yeah.
knowing what you are going to like.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I like it for sure. No, I think that's definitely a really great way to close the conversation, because it's a really good message to help people understand, and young engineers understand, that even if you make the wrong decision, it's it's going to help you get to know yourself, and it's going to help you learn what you don't like, and it's going to steer you in another direction that you may end up liking. You know.
Hmm.
Um,
And I think too many people are concerned with a timeline, saying, "Oh, I need to, I'm a little too old now. Yeah, it's too late to pursue this," or it's saying I should have done this by now. I should have graduated by now, or something. Like there's no timeline. Nobody says you had to do it by this date. It's fine as long. I mean, if you get it done at the end of the day, that's what matters.
Right, and it's your own journey at the end of the day. It's, I mean, you're the one that is, you're giving yourself deadlines, and then um, you're the one that is gonna reap the good results or living with the consequences of either taking decision or still standing back, not making any moves. Because that's worse. Like just sitting back and just being afraid to make the moves, and definitely not a good way to live life, per se, when you don't just take chances sometimes. Um,
No, and it's scary because I think a big thing is also understanding the difference between it's may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. For
mm,
example, I keep hearing the same one of like, ooh, I didn't do well in this class because my professor was terrible. And it's like, well, you know, it's not your fault that you did poorly in the class, because yeah, there was a lot of things around you, like maybe the professor was terrible, you might have
Yeah.
not been able to teach, but it is your responsibility to pass that class, to do well in it. So you need to find ways to go around that, because the excuse isn't going to help you out, like in a job interview, if they question you on it, right? You got to be able to find solutions to whatever's in front of you.
Right, right. No, man, you hit the nail on the head right there. Uh, at the end of the day, if you're asked why didn't something come out right, you can't just blame it on somebody. You know, if you're the one that's responsible to deliver it, to present your deliverables, then you just gotta take the take the blame and just take responsibility for it per se, and own it. But hey, do you have any closing thoughts per se, on someone that is in college right now? Do you have any words of encouragement to maybe if they're going through a rough class in software engineering or in engineering in general, because we're all going to go through those at some point, you know, what would you say to someone that it's, man, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I think I'm going to quit engineering. This is not for me. Like, what would you tell someone?
I would say analyze what's going on. Like, what's going on? Why are you not doing well, right? Take down notes, right? If you don't pass, who cares? Like, retake it, document what went wrong, and try to fix that next semester. Okay, there's always a next time. Just make sure you don't make the same mistake twice, because that's when you start regretting it. And don't judge yourself either. I think that's a big a big thing when you constantly say, oh, I'm dumb or something. Like, that'll get
Ah,
rooted into your subconscious. Like, don't say that. Don't put yourself down. It's all right, you know.
that's a really good insight right there. Like, don't keep calling yourself dumb because you start believing it and you start performing as one.
Yeah.
So no, that's definitely true. And also, I think, like you mentioned earlier, you know, like talking to your peers, talking to your professors, leveraging all the resources that you can use. I know it's a little hard right now, obviously, but you can still reach out to professors or meet up with friends through Zoom and start talking problems out. There's now with the obviously with social media, there's tons of ways that you can reach out to other engineers. Oh, hey, reach out to Miguel Cuen here on Instagram. I want to put your Instagram somewhere on the screen, and in the description, so you guys can contact them, get some advice, start networking with the future groundbreaking software engineer here. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for joining. Thank you for being here. And I'm also going to leave. You also have a YouTube channel, right?
Yes, I do. It'll
Okay.
just
Yeah,
be my name.
that's right. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to link all that up here in the description, also on the screen. And well, with that being said, we reached the end. Thank you for your time, for your insight, and I'm sure it's going to be very valuable to a young software engineering student and even software engineers out there. All right, man. Thank you. And I am going to end it. I'm going to stop recording first.